Today, we're going to talk about something really cool, a mental model for cutting through complexity and getting your mind unstuck. It's called the light foot of thinking.
You know that feeling, right? Where you're up against a problem or maybe a stubborn idea and you just feel stuck, like you're running into the same mental wall over and over and over again. Well, it turns out there's a reason for that, and more importantly, there's a way around it.
All right, here's our game plan for this explainer. First, we'll look at the trap of rigid thinking. Then, we'll introduce this whole light foot idea and figure out how it works. After that, we'll get practical and see where to use it. And finally, we'll talk about why choosing this lighter path is such a big deal.
Okay, first things first, let's talk about the problem. Why do we get so blocked up in our own heads? Well, a lot of it comes down to how we hold on to our ideas. See, we tend to take certain ideas or beliefs, put them up on a pedestal, and treat them like they're sacred and untouchable. But the second we do that, we've basically built our own little mental prison. That rigidity just blinds us to all the other possibilities that are floating around right in plain sight.
So if rigid thinking is the trap, how do we get out? Well, this is where a much more fluid, a much more agile way of thinking comes into play. It's our escape route. And here it is, the light foot of thinking. It's a mindset that doesn't get bogged down or blocked by any single idea. Instead, it moves freely among them, kind of dancing between different concepts without getting trapped. It's all about being mentally nimble.
Okay, that sounds great in theory, right? But how does it actually work? What's the secret sauce that powers this mental agility? You might be surprised.
So get this. The secret isn't about being smarter or having some kind of superpowered logic. It's about imagination. It's about your ability to create a mental image, a representation of yourself physically walking around a problem, looking at it from the front, the back, from way up high, and from down low.
And here is the really incredible part. This mental movie you're creating, it isn't just a plan for how you're going to think later. The act of visualizing that movement, that is the new way of thinking. It's happening in real time. You're not preparing to see things differently. In that moment, you are seeing things differently.
Which, of course, leads to the big question. Is this some kind of natural talent that you're either born with or you're not, or is it a skill that anyone can actually learn? Well, here's the good news. It's not some magic gift. It seems like the main reason most of us don't do it is that we were just never shown how, you know? A lot of our education, our upbringing, it kind of trains us to think in these very straight, rigid lines. But the capacity to think this way, it's in all of us, just waiting to be unlocked. Okay, let's bring this down to earth. Enough theory. Where does this light foot approach actually make a difference in the real world?
The source material points to three main areas where this kind of thinking is an absolute game changer. First, in everyday problems and personal conflicts. Second, in how we learn and deal with knowledge. And third, in navigating the really big challenges that life throws at us.
So when you're facing a problem, the difference is just night and day. Heavy thinking gets you stuck in one spot, fixated on one perspective. You start to identify with the problem. It becomes a part of you. But light thinking, it dances around the problem, checking it out from all sides. That movement gives you a healthy detachment, which is where real clarity and control come from.
Think about an argument with a friend or a partner. You know how you both get dug into your own positions? When you're locked in like that, nothing gets solved. But if you can mentally step back and move around the conflict, you not only free yourself from getting stuck in your own frustration, but your flexibility can actually inspire the other person to see things differently too.
This is also massive when it comes to learning. So much of traditional schooling is about rigid authority. This is the fact, memorize it. But a light-footed approach is about playing with ideas, exploring different perspectives, and really fostering a genuine understanding, not just cramming for a test.
And here's a really crucial idea behind all this. Being temporarily uncertain is actually way better for you than having a momentary but false sense of certainty. Why? Because when you grab onto that easy answer too quickly, you can build a mental roadblock that becomes almost impossible to get past later on.
And what's so cool about this mindset is that suddenly nothing is off limits. You can approach a famous work of art, a complex scientific theory, or the ideas of some certified genius, and you don't have to just passively accept them. You can engage, you can move around them, question them, and truly make that knowledge your own.
And honestly, the applications are just about endless. This mental agility helps you out if you're lost on a trail, or if you're trying to create a piece of art. It's useful for making sense of dense information, for dealing with your kids or your parents, for learning a new skill or practicing a sport.
It even helps us approach the biggest challenges of all, like coping with illness and mortality.
So all of this really brings us to a choice. It's about consciously choosing to adopt a much more effective and, I think, much more graceful way of engaging with the world.
Because at the end of the day, this agile, light-footed approach just flat out works better. It's so much more effective than those heavy, clunky ways of thinking that get so tangled up in their own rules they can't even understand themselves, let alone solve the actual problem. So I'll just leave you with this one question to think about. As you go about your day, facing whatever comes your way, just take a second to check in with yourself and ask, is my thinking heavy right now or is it light?